Hello and welcome to another Free History Online video. Today we're going to be looking at Queen Elizabeth, and we're going to look at how successful was her government, particularly in the first 10 years. Welcome and thank you for joining this revision video. As I said, in this video we're going to look at Elizabeth in her first 10 years. We're going to be revising content around her succession, Cecil, Parliament, and the key people who were helping to rule the country. And then we're going to judge just how successful was she in her first 10 years by looking at a write an account question. But firstly, let's do a short quiz. Here we are then. Here is our quiz. And we're going to be looking at the key things in the first 10 years. And this quiz is going to just be a little reminder. So have a look at these 8 questions. Maybe pause me and see if you can answer them. They should be all basic things scattered around my various revision videos. So have a look through revision videos if you're not sure, or look at my Quizlet notes. But firstly, have a pause, see what you can remember. Okay then, so here's some of the answers. So question 1, what were the main set of advisors to Elizabeth known as? And obviously she had the Privy Council, which is like the government of the time. So some of the senior nobles gathered together to make decisions about running the country. Who kept control of local areas? So the Justices of the Peace. So these were gentry people who would organise courts, particularly quarterly courts, and would deal justice in local areas to ensure law and order. Who controlled the regions, raised taxes and organised the militia? Well, these were nobles, these were lord lieutenants, these were some of the senior nobles, and they particularly the trusted people Elizabeth would reward with this prestigious role. Name 2 groups of people who you'd find in the royal court. So obviously we've got nobles, we've got ladies in waiting, we've got servants and advisors. So the royal court would be 100 people or so, where all the political gossip took place. And of course, they would follow Elizabeth wherever she went. So if you were hosting Elizabeth on one of her many travels, you could get quite an expensive bill feeding and accommodating the court that follows her. So who was Elizabeth's spymaster and helped control Mary Queen of Scots? So Francis Walsingham, one of the key individuals at the time. And then another key individual who was, question 6, her most consistent key advisor, and was Secretary of State, as we'll find out in question 7, is William Cecil. Obviously, we'll know him as Burghley as well. Question 7 is how many times was Cecil Secretary of State, this Prime Minister role? It was twice, but obviously for quite a period of time. And which role was close to Prime Minister? Well, as I said, Secretary of State. So I hope you knew lots of that. If you didn't, then do go back to my revision videos and Quizlet notes to find out. Well, I hope you've got some good knowledge there, and the quiz has given you a bit of confidence to move on, and you've got some ideas about basic structures of government in Elizabeth's time. So now let's move on to some writing account skills. Not our favourite question, but this one's slightly different, looking at politics and security of control. So hopefully a really useful one to look at. So firstly, before we look at our write an account question, we're going to look at just how secure was the rule of Elizabeth in her first 10 years. I imagine you could get a question similar to write an account about how successful her government was in the first 10 years, or generally write an account about how successful her government was, and you could just choose the first 10 years as the main part of your answer, or write an account of her failures in terms of running her government. So this will hopefully give you a few ideas to work for. So have a little think then. Maybe you could pause the screen. What areas of power were there? So I'll give you obviously a hint. You could be looking at something like Parliament, and then think about ways secure and not secure. So I came up with the ideas of marriage and succession, religion, foreign policy, and things at home like nobility and Parliament. If she is secure in these areas, then she's going to be successful. So if she has marriage and succession organised, that's going to enable her to have more power. Nobody's going to threaten her because they know who the next monarch is. Religion, there's a Catholic and Protestant divide, so if she can keep everyone happy, she's going to be successful. Foreign policy, quite important. France and Spain are more powerful than England. at this time. So trying to keep a balance between France and Spain, trying to keep friends with them. It's been really important, trying to avoid war. At home, control of Parliament. Obviously, kings were in control of Parliament, apart from finances, which was obviously given up a little bit by Magna Carta. And she should be in charge of the nobility. They shouldn't be rebelling against her. They shouldn't be causing conflict with her if she manages them well. Have a think then, ways secure and not secure. Can you think of any examples? Particularly if you're going to write an account, can you think of any examples of ways she's secure or not secure? Maybe pause me and have a go and sort of look through your notes. Okay, here's the ideas I've come up with. So ways that she's secure. She had not given up her independence to a foreign Catholic king in terms of marriage, and could have caused problems between Catholics and Protestants. Obviously, if she married a Catholic or a Protestant king, they could have got really upset. Religion. She tried not to upset the Catholics. Obviously, there's a big problem. Edward was very Protestant. Mary was very Catholic. She had to find that middle way. So that via media. If you want to revise that, look at my revision book, revision notes and my revision videos. So try not to upset the Catholics, allowed them to worship at home, but made the churches Protestants, they had to attend those. So she's trying to keep them happy and keep everyone happy. Is she maybe going to keep nobody happy with that? You have to think about it. So the Act of Uniformity is 1559 is the big act to try and know about. Foreign policy. So she kept her marriage options open. This meant she could form an alliance with people whenever she needed to. And she did nothing at this time to upset France or Spain in the first 10 years, particularly, maybe a little bit, but not too much. And at home, control of Parliament, only called Parliament when needed. Peter Wentworth in Parliament was a bit naughty and annoyed her when he started talking about marriage. So he was sent to the Tower. And she kept the major nobles in order, e.g. Norfolk was a big Catholic noble and was kept happy by being in the Privy Council. So she was doing a fairly good job, but maybe in the first 10 years there's ways she's not secure as well. So Parliament were very unhappy. Elizabeth wasn't married. So she caught smallpox in 1562, and Parliament feared that if she died of smallpox, there would be a civil war between Catholics and Protestants because there was no clear succession. So they started to talk openly about her marriage and the problem it was causing. Elizabeth had to forbid them to talk about her marriage, which is what led Wentworth to get sent to the Tower. Religion. Catholics did not want Elizabeth as queen. They did not accept her being queen because her mother, Anne Boleyn, they believed her marriage to Henry VIII was illegal. And just in the 10th year of our first 10 years, Mary Queen of Scots arrives in 1568, and obviously the Catholics may want her to be queen. So then we got foreign policy. Obviously, she was Protestant, and that upset Philip of Spain, but he didn't really do anything about it. But then in 1566, Elizabeth started supporting the Netherlands because the Protestant Dutch there had a rebellion against the Catholic Spanish masters that ruled that area, and Elizabeth started to support that revolt. At home, Parliament were very unhappy with the succession, as we talked about, and nobility were jealous, perhaps, of Dudley and Leicester's promotion due to her relationship with Elizabeth, and no succession. So Parliament nobility, again, unhappy. And the nobility could well get involved in plots to overthrow Elizabeth, especially with Mary Queen of Scots here. And you could possibly link to the Northern Rebellion just 1 year later in 1569. So let's have a look at this write an account question. Write an account about the problems Elizabeth faced in the first 10 years of her reign. So let's think about success criteria first. How are we going to do this successfully? So we've done this before if you looked at some of my other videos. So firstly, remember it's an explain. It's not write an account. Okay, that should hint toward event and consequence, like a story. But generally, you'll do better if you just make sure you do your good explain paragraphs. That means your peel paragraphs need to be used. Make sure you're then giving examples. An example of a problem Elizabeth faced in the first 10 years, and then explain how she dealt with it. So you're explaining the consequences. It could be good or bad, obviously. Thirdly, you want to explain 2 ideas for the 8 marks. And don't be afraid to link in your appeal, the L for link, explain a wider idea, using different peoples, different places, different times to link to a wider idea. So you'll end up with a sort of writing frame a bit like this. So if you like, you're welcome to pause now and give it a go. I'm about to go through a paragraph. So if you want to see like an example paragraph first, then you can do that. Or you can try and write the essay and then come back to my example afterwards to mark it. It's up to you. But if you want to write it first or plan it out first, then pause me now and then coming back to it in a minute. But you can use any of those ideas from the table: religion, foreign policy, succession, marriage, or any of those ideas we had in the table earlier. You can flick back to that to help you work it out. Okay, so let's try the answer. So firstly, I'm going to deal with the problem of marriage and succession. So one problem for Elizabeth in the first 10 years was the problem of marriage and succession. For example, so think of an example. What example did she have in the first 10 years marriage succession? So I'm going to talk about marriage. So for example, she did not marry in her first 10 years, despite interest from Philip of Spain and Cecil trying to organise a match to Eric of Sweden and Charles of Austria. And then she got a nice example about not being very successful with marriage. She's rejected a few candidates. Got a few facts in there to impress your examiner. So now explain the consequence. This was a success or this was a failure because you're being asked to talk about the problems of her reign. So did she solve this well or not? You can explain. You can give one of each. You could link to a good one and explain a bad one now. Okay, let's see what I did. Have a think yourself before I change. What would you say? This was a failure for Elizabeth, as a lack of succession caused bad relations with Parliament. As after she had smallpox in 1562, Parliament tried to get Elizabeth to marry, as they feared civil war between Catholics and Protestants if there was no clear succession. This led to Wentworth being sent to the Tower for discussing Elizabeth's marriage. So a failure upset Parliament. She was not ruling the country very well in the first 10 years. Furthermore, or you could do a however, have a think yourself, what would you maybe do as furthermore? Where would you go next with it? So here's my idea. Furthermore, it's a failure, as when Mary Queen of Scots died in 1568, Elizabeth had no marriage allies or succession, so Catholics began to plot to overthrow Elizabeth. So I've gone to extended length of time to give my wider idea there. So you can imagine you can probably do a foreign policy paragraph. You could look into further ways she's upset Parliament, if you like, or the nobility. So there's other paragraphs to write there, and you can now try your own. I hope you found today's video enlightening. You've managed to develop your skills and have a think about maybe a slightly different question about her power and success in the time period, and start to give you some ideas to revise for that topic. So look out for more videos, and bye-bye for now.